Well, good morning, everyone. This is Mike Dotterer, and you're on Champions on the Dot. We're adding champions, and I want to thank my good friend, my teammate from Stanford University, who is our special guest, and it's Super Bowl Saturday. And just to give you a little background, you can see this picture back here, and this number 67, Mr. Brian Holloway, and I'm over here, number 24. We're running out on the field many years ago in Stanford Stadium, and I was so honored to play with him, to be his teammate, to be on a great team. We had some fantastic players, and I could list so many of them: John Elway, Andre Tyler, Kenny Marjoram, Vincent White, Vaughn Williams, Garen Veras. I mean, we could go on and on. We had a fantastic team. Chris Dressel, and hopefully we can mention some of them because Brian, we played with some Andre Tyler. I mean, just fantastic players. Emil Harry. So, in any event, Brian Holloway not only had a great career at Stanford, he's in the Stanford Hall of Fame. He was an All-American at Stanford. He was the first-round pick of the New England Patriots, and then went on to help take the Patriots to their first Super Bowl. Before Tom Brady, Brian Holloway led the way for the Patriots back in the 1985 Super Bowl, I believe, and just a great player, all pro. He's a member of the all 1980 New England Patriots team. And since then, he has taken his celebrity and used it for positive, because he's a great motivator. He's a great speaker. I'll never forget his induction speech that he gave at Stanford when he was inducted to the Stanford Hall of Fame. Everyone was mesmerized. So, without further ado, this is our special Super Bowl edition. Brian Holloway, welcome to Champions on the Dot.
There we go, buddy. It's good to see you again.
Great to see you, Brian. And I can see you've got the jersey.
Well, when I'm ready to go to work, it symbols the accomplishments and the intensity and the incredible journey that all champions share. And when you have the ability or the fortitude to have the courage to head up a mountain where only 1 in 352,000 make it, we're wired a bit differently. And so on days like this, both of us have stories that I wanted to share about Super Bowl Saturday that none of the fans would ever imagine happens. And I want you to think back on when you were there, and I have plenty to share, because that New England Patriot team, no one had ever done it before. So we were the wild card, and we came from behind again and again and again and again and again to go and head to our very first Super Bowl, where we played the Chicago Bears.
Well, I remember that team because the year before I was on the Raider team, and I'll never forget, because Walter Payton was one of my heroes, and we were on the field in Tampa for the back then they had the press conference with all the players, and I was standing there. We all had our jerseys on, and there was Walter Payton, and I just was, he was one of my heroes as a fellow running back, and again, he was standing there, and little did I know. Well, little did I know that. What's that?
When you sit there and just look at him eye to eye, and you're standing next to him, and you're like,
I know.
Yeah.
So he was. So little did I know that you would be playing against him the next year.
Yeah, it was an incredible year, and they had an amazing year, one of the most spectacular years in the NFL. And they had a defense that no one had ever seen before. So what Bill Walsh did with offense is much like what the Chicago Bears did with their defense. It was a very complicated 3 and 4 level deep blitz package, which means they'll line up and they look like they're going to do this, but they actually do this. That's a 2-level deep. But on their case, they look like they're going to do this. Then they fake doing this, and it looks like they're going to do that. You may not know which man you're to block until 2 seconds into the play. It was the most astonishing and complex defense we'd ever seen. And if you didn't study, there was no chance. There was no chance. And they were averaging like 4 or 5 sacks a game. Holy smokes. That's why we ran the ball. We ran the ball. But what I didn't know as you're preparing for it, you're like, holy smokes, we're here on Saturday morning, day before the game. Okay. You want things to be totally game ready, but it's different. It is just different. So one of the things I wanted to share, and I want to hear yours, is here are 3 of the things that happened to me. I was just shocked. One, being there at the Super Bowl, just the energy and the enthusiasm and the excitement. I went and jumped on the scale. I lost 20 pounds. And that was just from the energy of getting ready to play. And I was like, what am I doing? But for this particular game, that weight was okay because I had to be super speed and be super agile. My agility had to be at its highest level because there's so many different changes. The other thing is that we were put into we had bed check at 9:00 at night. So when other teams get the chance to go out and celebrate and have a good time, we're locked in our rooms. Now, for some people, that would work out really good, but the ball players, the Giants, the energy, the force, we need to vent. We need to let that get out. We need to go and be outside, which is, where we built our career. So that was a big adjustment for me to be able to do that. So, and then our youngest, this was a big, because you walk into the hotel and everybody is running up to you. David was just, 1 year old. And he thought he was being attacked, and he would literally just crawl up, and then he stopped eating. So, and he was dehydrated, and he wasn't taking any milk. And we were very concerned, and we were like, we're going to have to take him to the hospital. And what we did, and I go, we have to find a way to settle this. We flew in his best friend and his best friend's family and put them up in the hotel room next door. And we arranged the room like their playroom back in New York. And we had the food brought up exactly the way they were used to eating it. And he started to eat. It's crazy, right? It's crazy. And then you get other players on your team and you find out, some of the stuff that they might be dealing with is, a father they've never met shows up. And where's my tickets? Okay. And you're like, what? And then your brother, your sister, and their boyfriends and girlfriends and their posse. And all of a sudden what? We need 40 tickets? And you got to pay those? There's many players that spent their entire Super Bowl check in just tickets and providing for their family coming up there. Now, do I think that's absolutely appropriate? I said, well, I think it's appropriate, but not when you're spending $50,000 to $100,000. It's crazy.
Wow.
How about you? What are some of the things that
my memories? Well, as I said, I'll never forget meeting Walter Payton, who you faced the next year. But I agree. I mean, I remember being in the hotel, and I remember going into Howie Long's room, and Howie was kind of sitting back, and he was kind of in a trance. And
yeah.
And then
he roomed with me during the combines.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like, "Do you think I could make it? Do you think, bro? You're gonna be fine.
Yeah,
you're gonna be fine. Yeah."
Yeah. So I just, I remember, the hotel was a a frenzy. And you know, I had a chance to become friends with a woman who was quite famous back then. They called her Miss Hollywood. Her name was Rona Barrett.
At the Super Bowl?
No, I met Rona when I was at Stanford.
No, we're talking about Saturday, Super Bowl Saturday today, bro.
Yeah, but I'm just saying when Rona Barrett was a friend of mine and she'd never been to a Super Bowl. Okay. And Mr. Davis allowed us to fly out a couple friends. So
no way.
So I got Rona and her friend, her husband, Bill Trowbridge. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
And they flew on Rona and her husband flew on the jet, the Raider jet to Tampa. Tampa. Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen to the Patriots.
Yeah, so I had Rona Barrett covering, from Hollywood, covering our Raiders. And I was on injured reserve, so it was quite frustrating because I wasn't able to suit up for the game. But, I was still on the team. I practiced, we went to practice and I'm in the team picture and everything. But it was frustrating. But one of my first roommate with the Raiders was Lyle Alzado.
Oh, mercy.
Yeah.
No way.
And so Lyle and I became friends. And you mentioned, Brian, as you know, we get tickets. Players got tickets back then. And
he pitched you for the ticket? He pitched you for some tickets.
Well, Lyle actually, he had like 50 tickets. And I don't know. And he said to me, he said, my nickname back then was on the team was Soupy. Ted Hendricks gave me that name. He thought I was like Soupy Sales, the comedian, because I had this blue jumpsuit. It was the USA Baseball blue jumpsuit, and he saw me in training camp, and he said, Soupy Sales. So that was my nickname, Soupy. So any event, Lyle said, hey, Soupy, I've got 50 tickets, and why don't you take these tickets because you're not suiting up for the game and go out in the parking lot and sell the tickets.
Whoa.
And I said, okay. So I took the 50 tickets and went out into the parking lot. And this is Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, for sure.
I sold the 50 tickets and I had the most cash I've ever had in my entire life. I must have had tens of thousands of dollars of money in this paper bag.
Oh, mercy.
It was the most money I've ever been ever had in my life. And I went back into the locker room, and there was Lyle. He's just taping up, and he was getting he was getting ready, and he's got his jersey, and he's sitting there, and he's rocking like he's
he is. Yeah.
He's rocking, and I sit down next to him with the bag of cash, and I'm so proud and so happy because I sold all the 50 tickets.
Oh,
and I said to him, I said, Lyle, look at this. I got the tickets. And he's rocking back and forth. And finally he stopped. He stopped. He doesn't look at me. He stops like this. And he looks to me. And then all of a sudden he explodes. He goes,
yep.
And basically, he said, what? I don't know. I mean, he just explodes. And Coach Flores is over on the other side of the locker room. And Coach Flores hears Lyle explode.
Yeah.
And I think he said, oh, okay, guys, let's hit the tunnel. And I said, and then later, after reflecting on this, I said, you know what? That was my contribution to the team. I helped get the team fired up.
Yeah. No, that would work. Alzado was something else.
So anyway,
he was something else.
I think that was my lone contribution. I got Lyle excited in the locker room, and Coach Flores said when he started screaming, let's hit the field, man.
Yeah, wow. That's incredible. Whenever I had to line up, now playing against Lyle, you had to be ready because he was so aggressive and he was so strong. So if you're lining up in front of him, you better be benching 500 pounds. Because you don't have the strength to play against him. And then you don't necessarily know if he's going to use any moves or he's just going to come with straight power. And so I was like, I got to find a way to be able to just snap this power out of him. And so, like I said before, I had 70 different ways I would block somebody. And without coming off the corner like that, I says, let me just test this. So I would try things in the game when I knew it was safe to do it. So, and he was like 255, 265. He wasn't, a 295er. And so because he liked to come in and do a headbutt and power you back, and I said, he's going to come in one time and do that. And I'm going to grab him shoulder pads and I'm going to lift him off the ground. And so I did that. And he was like, bro, put me down. Don't ever do that again. Don't do that. I won't tackle anybody. We'll just play the game. Don't you ever do that again. Do we got a deal? I said, yeah, we got a deal. Yeah.
Well, Brian, speaking of picking people up, I have to let our audience know, because people are tuning in. They're listening via YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're live. And I just want to let everyone know that this biggest man, other than who is the guy? There's another guy at Stanford that preceded you, offensive lineman that played for the Giants. Who was that?
King.
Gordon King.
Yeah.
You and Gordon King were the biggest human beings I'd ever been around. And I don't know what prompted you to do this. I must have said something that maybe.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And you picked me up like this. You picked me up in the locker room, turned me on my head, and put me in a garbage can. And I think anyone in that locker room will remember that memory.
I was sitting there. You were talking. I'm getting ready for the game. Like, I got to do stuff out there on that field you don't understand. Okay. I block so you can score so we can win. And so there's a whole lot of ugly over there on the other side. And these are great players. It's all bad for them because I'm getting game ready. And so there's a lot of emotion there. And all of a sudden, this person you hear speaking now, that person exits and someone else shows up. And you were saying, okay, what are you going to do on this? What are you going to do? I said, stop talking to me. He goes, no, but on this play, we're no ready. Just want to check one thing. I said, I told you to stop talking to me. And then you kept going, and there's players in the locker room that just going, let's just watch. The big dog going to explode, bro. Big dog going to explode. And you just kept going. And I'm like,
you picked me up. So you know what? Thank you for recalling that story, because I don't know what prompted, but now I do. And
well, I mean, and it was helpful. So could you imagine on the teams now getting ready, like with all the stuff going on, and there's so many deals that are being offered to the ball players that show up the day before the game. Hey, we want you to, we want you to go and be our forward representative. We want you to go out and market this piece. We want you, here's $100,000 for you to do this. And it was something that I just had never seen before.
Yeah.
I didn't ever seen before.
Yeah, and I remember. Yeah, I do remember during the season, there was a guy that came up to me and said, hey, Michael, this is this amazing drink, chocolate drink. And can you help market this chocolate drink for me? And I remember that. I don't, but
number 24.
Right.
We're talking about the Super Bowl, Saturday Super Bowl.
Well, here's something that
now they're everyone's bringing their own water.
Oh, right.
So they load the water and bring it on the plane, and they guard that water as they would for tampering, because one little tamper could change everything, and it doesn't need to be like aggressive. It could be just some X-lax. Right. So that's a very big part of the unseen. And then the meals that are prepared. I know some teams bring their own chefs and they take over the kitchen, or they've done advance. So 2 weeks before, they've already showed up and they've gone over all the meal prep and done everything with the hotel and what the expectations are. And they actually said, this is how we prepare this. Yeah.
Well, so, in the Super Bowl, there's 3 plays that I recall in the Super Bowl I was a part of, and I'd like to hear your, maybe come up with 3 plays that you recall in your Super Bowl. The 3 amazing plays in our Super Bowl was, number 1, John Madden called it the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. And people think, oh, it was a wide receiver. Nope. It was the great Ray Guy, who, rest in peace. I went to Ray's memorial service last year in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Wow.
And I didn't realize Ray Guy was one of the greatest athletes of all time.
Yes. He
Phenomenal
was extremely athletic.
Well, there was a snap for his punt in the Super Bowl, and he went up and caught the ball with
I remember.
One hand. He went up, probably as high as Michael Jordan on a basketball player, and he came down with it with one hand.
Yeah.
Collected himself and kicked it 60 yards.
Yeah.
And if that ball goes over, if he doesn't jump and catch it with one hand, could have changed the whole complexion of the game. So that was number 1. The second play.
Hold on, real quick. Don't forget number 2. They built indoor stadiums, off the height that he would kick a football.
Yes.
And that was the minimum level in which a stadium could be built, because he kicked the ball so high.
Well, and he did kick the ball at the Houston Astrodome, and he did hit the top of the dome.
Exactly.
Great guy. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So the second play, and this is another man who I became good friends with, and he just transitioned. He passed this past year, Jack Squirek.
Okay.
And Jack Squirek, when we won the Super Bowl, he was the person on the cover of the Super Bowl. And Charlie Sumner, who was our defensive coordinator, he thought that Joe Theismann was going to throw this pass to, I think it was Joe Washington, and he knew it was going to come. And he told Jack Squirek, okay, this formation, they're going to throw this little screen pass to Joe Washington. You can come in and anticipate it. And he intercepted it and ran it in for a touchdown. So that was the second big play, and that play got Jack on the cover of Sports Illustrated because it was a backbender. And then the final play, which was amazing, was our Super Bowl MVP. And I tell everyone he's one of the greatest athletes I'd ever played with. If you played golf or tennis or water polo or track, Marcus Allen. And Marcus had this famous play where he went this way and then he turned around and
no, just remarkable. And he had a sense of balance and ease in which he moves and just flowed like that. And it was amazing. It was just incredible. When I was at the Raiders, it was fun playing with him. I played with him at several Pro Bowls. And what was astonishing, which marks a period of tremendous sports history, is when Bo showed up mid-season. And I think I told you this story before. If I haven't, I'll continue. And they said he was back there. He didn't dress for practice. He was just standing in the backfield. And then the coach said, what you were supposed to do on that play, you don't know what you're supposed to do? And Bo said, who are you? I'm Bo Jackson. I score touchdowns. I win football games. Can they block? If they can block, we're going to win. And the lineman turned, we're good with that. We're good. Because he said he wasn't going to learn plays. Didn't need to. He says, I'll step back 2 more yards. And then the moment I'll never forget forever. And James Lofton was sitting there. He was staring just as I was. Marcus took the ball, handed it to Bo. Marcus, a Hall of Famer, gave the ball to Bo and said, Bo, I'll block. And on every play, Marcus, lining up before him, would have a very small signal he'd give to Bo. So Bo knew which way to take the handoff. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then Bo had his own. He would sit there and look at the field and go, we might be on the right hash. And he goes, bad dog, why don't you let your guy go? I said, what you got in mind? He said, "Can you get downfield? Can you get easily?" I said, "Yeah, I get him." He's running a naked reverse. And I said, he says, "Your guy will never touch me." And Jeff Bryant, Seattle. And so it was the Bosworth game. And so I sat there and I leaned heavy inside so he'd think I was going to cut him off. And so his weight would be off balance. And so I did that and hit him with a crisscross. And I was blazing towards the left hash mark, 30 yard down the field. And it looked really crazy, bro, because everyone was going to the right, everybody. And some little, like I looked like some little banshee that was running down, screaming down the field as fast as I could. And you couldn't look back and turn and see because that'd take off half a second on your stride and you'd miss your block because Bo was so fast. And I was like, holy smoke, looking at Easley coming across the field. I said, Bo's here already? And so I was about to splatter him. I mean, it was going to be a poster shot. And I'm like, Monday Night Football, this is going to be, holy smoke, the shot of shots. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, he's going that fast. And I go, I might miss him. And so I said, I had to dive. I threw out my arms because I know if I could catch just the tip of his toe, it'd bring his arms down. And that's exactly what happened. And then touchdown.
Was that the play? Was that the play where Bo ran into the tunnel?
Yeah, hold on. It's one of me. Did that twice. And I told him, I said, bro, okay, I broke the play. Okay, you're going to pay my fine, right? You're going to pay my $10,000 fine? He goes, no problem. We won't get fined, bro. We scored. That was pretty funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bo Jackson, what an amazing player, athlete. And, you know, I'll never forget when Bo Jackson hit one of his home runs after he had his hip replacement.
Yeah.
Just a phenomenal athlete. Yeah. And, you know, you mentioned Marcus Allen. Remember your junior year and my freshman year? I think it was your junior year, my freshman year. We played USC in the Coliseum, 1979.
Bro.
And you know what? They had Marcus Allen at fullback and another great Heisman Trophy winner, NFL alum, Charles White, tailback.
Was he a tailback back then?
Charles White was the tailback.
Oh, yeah.
So how many teams do you know that have two Heisman Trophy winners in the backfield?
I went to the Rose Bowl on my recruiting trip. It was Bo Schembechler versus, what was the coach of USC at the time?
John Robinson or John McKay. John Robinson.
It was McKay.
McKay.
Yeah, McKay. And so the big fullback they had got hurt. Ricky, what was
Ricky
his
Bell.
name?
Ricky Bell?
Yeah. Ricky Bell got a concussion. And so they had to put in a freshman. And that was Charles White.
Yeah.
And everything changed forever after that for him.
You know, I felt bad about Charles because Charles was such a great athlete. He was not only a great football player, he was an outstanding baseball player.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Played in San Fernando High School.
Wow.
And he played some baseball at USC with Rod Dato. But in any event, Charles, you know, he ran with reckless abandon. I mean, he just hit you. And as you know, as the NFL alumni, we now know about the traumatic brain injuries that we have. And people 20 years ago, or maybe 10 years ago, they would criticize, you know, because Charles was having problems and they didn't realize.
They just didn't know. They know so much more now. They know so much
more. They do. But Charles had to take that ridicule and he sacrificed his body. Yeah. He sacrificed it. And you know what? I do have to.
We all sacrifice our body, bro.
Well, this is something, and I know this is Super Bowl Saturday, and we want to talk about the Super Bowl, but I do have to mention this because we talked about it just briefly earlier this week. Dartmouth College. I've got to take my hat off to Dartmouth College basketball. They got a ruling this past Monday. The National Relations Labor Bureau, NLRB, or
Labor Relations
Board ruled in favor that the Dartmouth basketball players are employees and they're starting an Ivy League basketball union. And I've got to ask you, Brian, what do you think this means for college
It's
athletics?
Super Bowl Saturday. Okay.
I know.
One of the things each player has is a certain way they want their meals prepared. There's certain things that must be prepared for every player because when they have their protein shakes, it must be set an exact way. They have it all a recipe. There's certain players that go in and they get all their vitals taken because if any of their vitals are off, they know what nutrients to take. Tom Brady was the king of that one. There's some players that are coming down to meetings and covering up that they stayed up all night and haven't slept. So there's so many things that go on, and there's some players, this is very significant, who know they aren't going to be on the team next year. And this is their last year in football. And so some of them could be laser focused, or they could just be buck wild. And they go, look, this is it. I'm going to get cut after this. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics that go on in this game. And then you have stuff going on like my father sat there and we got all the tickets ready to go. And before the game, he brought up one of those motor coaches and he arranged to have his own little party with his military buddies with a motor coach. And bro, I don't even know if he made it to the game. Military, they, when he gets his buddies and they get together and they're having quite a time. And my dad worked hard, he played hard. And I was like,
so you don't know if your dad was in the stadium?
I have no idea and would not be surprised if he wasn't in there.
Right. And he didn't after the game, he didn't bring it up. He didn't say it. He didn't bring it up.
No. We got beat 46-10. The most amazing conversation was with Grandma because Grandma wanted to come. And Grandma's super quiet and everything. And, she's could have been 80, 90 years old. And when I saw her walking out after the game, she said to me, well, that was embarrassing. But there was nothing. I knew what was going on because of the play selection. I knew something was unusual. And
this is Super Bowl. This is Super Bowl Saturday.
There's a few unusual things that happen in the background. It's sports entertainment.
Well, let's talk about sports entertainment. And tomorrow, I'm calling it the Swifties versus the Silicon Valley engineers. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about tomorrow's game?
Well, I think 49ers are absolutely going to win unless Kansas City does. So I will tell you there some of the interesting things that go on. 49ers could sit there and go, we got McCaffrey. Okay, we'll just run the ball and chew up the clock. Is that a strategy? Of course. You do that. Slow, boring plays, strike to the end zone deep, right? Slow, boring plays and misdirection they haven't seen. They may have a whole different, and this as well, some coaches have the Super Bowl playbook in which none of the plays that you're going to run have ever been run that season. So they don't have any intelligence on them and they don't have any AI on them. And so you just never know. And then you can have more false keys in this game. And then you'll get some coaches who will go, no, it's plain vanilla. We're going to take our playbook of 400 plays and we're going to run 40 plays. That's it this game. And so just let the ball players just unleash. But you never know. One of the things is the study, because both teams get a chance to walk out on that field today. And that's just to check, because even though they may have practiced on that field during the week, the day before the game, sometimes the field changes a bit. And then the receivers can pick because they bring 6 or 7 pair of cleats. They can pick the best cleats that are exact for the turf. Same with the quarterbacks. Same with the D line. Offensive linemen, you're going to have 3 pair of cleats. That's it. You're going to have your screw-ins, and you're going to have your secret screw-ins that are, they say, are not allowed. But with the big men, you can't really see them. That goat takes you way back. And so that's with the deep mud and watery field and the snow. And then we also had at the Patriots, we had some sneakers that would, for some reason, they were made of something that if it was icy on the field, there was a chemical reaction and it would stick to the ice. And so you weren't wearing cleats. We went out there with sneakers. I couldn't believe it. And we destroyed who were we playing? Was it Dolphins or the Bengals? We destroyed them.
And those were with tennis shoes.
They were tennis shoes, yeah. They were canvas, which was crazy. And they had these little nubs on the bottom, and they were shoes from the 70s, but they would stick on turf and ice. Holy smokes, it was crazy. Yeah. You get frostbite though. You'll be frostbite after the game.
What was the coldest game you ever played in, Brian?
30 below. 30
below?
Yeah. Yep.
Where was that? Was that in Foxborough or is that an away game?
No, I think it was. It had to be either Green Bay. I think it was Green Bay. And what was wild, I mean, the way my body worked is when I stepped on the field, I didn't feel the temperature, with the exception of going down and playing in Tampa or going up to play in Denver because of the air. But I could go on the field with just a T-shirt on, and at 30 below, I could sweat because my body is at a whole different place, right?
Right.
And you can go on the field and you have such intensity, you can go out and have the most tremendous hit and not feel anything. You can break something and you can't feel it.
You know who did that? And I think you had already graduated, but we played at Stanford. We played against a guy named Joe Kapp, who was the coach at Cal. And he was known when he played for the Vikings, when he played in the Super Bowl, he didn't wear a long sleeve. He just wore, and so you were kind of the same. You didn't wear those. You just.
Bro, I would sweat. There'd be nothing but steam and smoke coming off me. And then I go into the locker room, change, get ready. I go home, and after the game, I would stay up all night long. I couldn't, because the reruns are happening, right? So you're taking your body up to this tremendous place of intensity. And it takes a while for it to, I need a lot of tarmac to be able to land. And then usually Monday or Tuesday, I'd start just shaking incredibly because that adrenaline and that, and it was directed adrenaline versus something where you have a panic and you just fill with it. I directed it. So I was in charge of it and I unleashed it. And it is such a high level. Again, you don't feel pain and you don't feel cold. You don't feel weather. And you get out there and just total focus. Yeah.
Well, this Super Bowl, you mentioned something earlier, Brian, that's so true. This is probably on a team, a football team. Is it what's the total number of players? Is it 60 or 50? What is it? 50, 60? What's
on each team now?
On each team now. Yeah. What's that suit up for the game?
I want to say it's like 65. It may be 55. They may for the Super Bowl suit up more.
And of those players, what percentage? This is it. I mean, this is their opportunity.
50% will be cut. Yeah.
So everyone knows the story about the Super Bowl after the Super Bowl. Actually, I think between your Super Bowl and the Super Bowl I was a part of was the Miami Dolphins, and they had a quarterback named Dan Marino.
Yeah.
And it was his second year in the league.
Yeah.
And he went to Stanford Stadium, which is, in this picture. And that's where it was Dan Marino versus Joe Montana.
Right. Yeah.
And people said, gosh, I mean, he's second year, great young quarterback. and the 49ers won, and everyone said, well, Dan will be back to another Super Bowl. And that was it.
Dan was so gifted, talented. He didn't have many ball players like that surrounding him. The defense was terrible, absolutely terrible. They did not have any. They didn't have anyone in their defense, Dot, that could run under 4.6. They were just slow. It was ridiculous, and they weren't strong, weren't conditioned in the same way. Because my generation was the first of the big lifters. So everyone, you're required to bench press 500 pounds, and you better be training during the season hard. And they weren't at that level yet. They didn't get there. So, you get into a punching max, and you could break him down pretty quick.
Well, as you know, Brian, defense wins championships. Because if they don't score, you're in the game. And I got to ask you tomorrow.
Defense does not win championships. Offense does.
Oh, God. Okay. Well,
offense does. If you can move down the field, look, you can score 3 touchdowns in 5 minutes. Okay, that's showing out. Defense can't show like that.
Well, how about that team? How about that defense that the Ravens had with Ray Lewis when they won the Super Bowl? That first Ravens.
Okay, hold on. Let me get you there, Jackson.
Okay.
Guess what defense they were running? The 46 defense. Yeah. And then, you got Hercules there, left tackle. Talk about a racer. Jonathan Ogden, like here I am, 6'7", 350. I'm kind of like the tank, right? And then he's 6'9", 370, 380. And he runs the 4.6. And he's an Olympic. He's an Olympic champion. And he's super athletic. And I'm like, he was a mountain among men. And I was just like, God, it's all about being a race, It's incredible.
Well, but I remember that the team, they had Trent Dilfer, who was an average quarterback with Tampa Bay. He goes to the Ravens, and they just say, hey, Trent, just manage the game. Don't turn the ball over. No turnovers, because our defense is not going to allow them to score. Is that a not correct narrative?
I'm talking about this game.
No, you just gave your position. You said the 49ers are going to win if the Chiefs don't win.
Well, hey. I just think one on the revenue side of the whole thing, the league has never seen the influx of the irrational, passionate fanatics of Taylor Swift fans. Yeah. Now, everyone must say, isn't that wonderful? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that cute? It's a little bit more than that, because the velocity of money among that market segment is bigger, faster, wider, deeper than any segment in the market. So the NFL is literally reinventing itself, I promise you, for that age group. And never have they seen such revenues rise up. And the advertising rates on the commercials soared. I would not be surprised if they were tripled. And suddenly the narrative of the NFL game and the NFL experience has absolutely changed. Absolutely. And it's fascinating to watch.
Do you think Taylor's on her private jet right now, flying from Tokyo to Las Vegas? Because she's got to come. She's in a concert in Tokyo, and I'm
told that she doesn't. She has a concert tonight, and then she flies and arrives before kickoff. I think she arrives around 2 or 3 o'clock.
Right.
Yeah.
They're gonna probably, like when a president comes to a city and they have the escort, the caravan. Well, I'd love to see how they're going to get Taylor quickly to the Allegiant Stadium from McCarran Airport. I'm sure it's
How many fans are going to be out there? 500,000 with their young daughters
I know,
to
just
sit there.
waiting, just waiting.
They are going to the game. They're just waiting because they know, and just to sit there and watch the landing. Okay, as a father, would I do that for my daughters? Yes, I would.
Right.
Yes, I would. And they would have the most incredible time of their life.
Yeah,
So,
it's
now,
exciting.
in this Super Bowl, something else was incredible that happened. Dot. They had, and I said this 20 years ago, because I was like, I don't understand why they don't do this. They had the Super Bowl stadium open for opening ceremonies on Wednesday, and all the fans there could come in for free.
Yes.
That was incredible. Now, what did they do? Did they triple the sales of their of all the food? Did they start blowing out sales of all the merch?
Smart.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
Did they create the most excitement and just ignite a generation?
Yeah.
Bro.
Smart. Yeah. Well,
Hold on, I'm not finished yet. Okay. Did they have a family come there to go to the Super Bowl, and now having their kids gone in there, would any of them possibly sell their tickets and then take that money and go gambling? Oh, bro, it was just incredible to think so many wonderful things. And again, gaming, not gambling, gaming. There's so many interesting things that I've never seen before that are going on in this game. Now, also on Saturday, that's when the wives and families now go to another hotel. So that's how it was when we played. So the wives and family could stay with you in the same hotel up until the day before the game. And then they had to go to another hotel that was all prepared for them with all the resources that they need so that there could be total focus. Now, you are the Raiders. Raiders always do stuff a little different. How did they do it there?
Well, you know what? I don't remember. We had a hotel. I remember that, I walked up and down the halls, and I don't think there were any spouses or family members with they didn't, they weren't there. They were at a separate hotel.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
Separate hotel.
Did you see any of the meals changing or anything else?
No, you know what? I mean, I think our meals were very similar to what we were eating at in Los Angeles. We were Los Angeles Raiders, so
I guarantee you the Raiders didn't have bed check during the week, did they?
Exactly. Well, that's something exactly. That is something in it, and we talked about it, I think, before we got on air here, Brian. I'll never forget again that Super Bowl with Dick Vermeil versus Tom Flores, 1980, in the Superdome, and Dick Vermeil had his Eagles locked down, and the Raiders, there was no bed check, there was no anything, and the Raiders, I guess the narrative was they were loose and relaxed and having fun, and the Eagles were locked down, and I gotta say, this Super Bowl that's coming up, I mean, Andy Reid seems to be
Vermeil would have 4-hour practices, bro, and blow out the legs of the linemen. That was, that was his thing. Perfection, which was like ridiculous.
Now, I would argue he learned from that, and when he went back and coached the Rams, the St. Louis Rams, I bet you he was a little bit different with that team.
Yeah, he was, because he was seeing and understanding the idea of, wait a minute, we aren't going to practice in pads. This is Bill Walsh. Because what he discovered is that would cause them to be more focused, less mental errors. Execution was increased by significant margins, and that the players were more aggressive because they didn't hit during the week. And so that surprised them. And that was exciting. That was
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. Well, this Super Bowl tomorrow, because it's Super Bowl Saturday, and again, everyone, we have Brian Holloway, and if you want to go and learn more about his amazing life, it's right down there. It's brianholloway.com. And this is Super Bowl. We're going to thank you. We're going to keep focused on this Super Bowl theme. And Brian, when you think of defense, and I know you're saying, well, you got to obviously, if you don't score, you don't win either. But let's just say, let's start with who do you think has the best defense, and then who do you think has the best offense? If you broke down these two teams.
Well, here's how I look at this. If they're going to be running their base package that they usually run, that's one thing. If they're going to put in and install a Super Bowl package, that's different. If they're going to install a shock and awe, that's different too. So again, I don't know. I do think that they're going to have a package where they can turn the players loose, and they might even say to the ball players, "We're going to run the plays you want to run. We're going to run the plays you love the most." So we'll see. I think McCaffrey, the most dangerous part of McCaffrey is that he could carry the ball 45 times a game, and he could take all the time off the clock. Now, Mahomes, with 3 minutes left on the clock, he could score 3 touchdowns. So, and because of so much of what he does is with his creative gifts, and he could release the ball in so many unorthodox ways and hit the mark. So I think for them, they have so much experience at winning Super Bowls in the last 5 years. I think that's gonna be a difference. Now, do I think 49ers are playing better than they've ever played? Yes.
What are your thoughts about the man who was picked the last person in the draft a few years ago, who's really just light up the world of football, Brock Purdy? What are your thoughts about Brock?
I think it's very simple. Tremendous athlete that matured. His best games came out in the NFL. His best physical ability came out, and that I was the same way. My best physical stuff came out in the NFL years. And then you take a quarterback and you wrap the offense around their strength. That's really fantastic. Now, a lot also in his performances has to do with the offensive line in front of him. I promise you. I promise you.
Oh, absolutely. Well, as you know, John Madden, who you got to know, John Madden said, they asked him, how do you build your team? And he said, you start with your offensive line.
Exactly. And by the way, Super Bowl story. Before taking the field, John Madden had a very famous saying, and everybody waited for this saying. And before in the walkway going down, he would say, "The horse may be blind, but keep unloading the wagon." Bro, and everyone exploded. And then I talked to Mark Van Eegen, and he was like, no one knew what that meant. They had no idea, but it was the trigger for them, which was something else. It was very funny. You know, they go, say that thing. Now, just before he said that, the trigger that Madden would use to say that was Mark Van Eegen, who was the running back. They'd wait for him to puke in the toilet. We aren't ready till Van Eegen hasn't puked yet. We can't start the game yet. I kid you not. And then when he puked, everyone's like, okay, we're ready. Let's go. I kid you not. Before every game, which was crazy.
Brian, you got to come to the Raider alumni event that thanks to Mark Davis, he's done this the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity to meet 2 of my heroes, Raider heroes. I met Mark Van Eegen and Pete Banaszak.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I wanted to come I wanted to come to the last one. And you remember for the opening, it was closed. They canceled it. And so I do want to come and see the guys and get a chance to rekindle. I was only there for a year and a half, and Al Davis was something very, very amazing. He says, "What do you need? Anything you need to play and be great? What do you need to do?" Now he knew that I had several injuries. Now I didn't know I had a torn ACL. I didn't know I had a rotator cuff torn. I didn't know my ankle was broken. Because that's how we play. And so I said, I need an ice tub in my room filled with ice so I can ice my legs. And in my room was a trash can filled with ice so I could ice my legs. Isn't that something?
Yeah. Mr. Davis was fantastic. And Mark.
They always had, you remember this, don't you dare lie. On the training table, they had peanut butter and jelly. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Was that wild?
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen that before. Yeah. Peanut butter and jelly.
Well, and also Mr. Davis, before anybody, I don't know if teams do it now, but he was the only owner in the National Football League that after the game, whether you won or lost, he'd invite the player and their entire family to a dinner after the game. And he took care of he took care of everything.
Wow. Yeah. I think I went to a couple of those.
Yep.
But yeah, it was, and then the other thing that was wild for me with the Raiders, I was sitting on the sideline and then out on the field, the defense, someone got in a fight. And then everybody was like putting their hat on and running. I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Oh, we got to get in the fight." I said, "What?" No, we go out there as a team to get in the fight. I was like, bro, put your helmet on, strap it on. You get fined if you just sit here. You run out in the field, you jump in the fight, blindside someone, punch him in the neck, and then Al will pay all the fines from Roselle's office. And if you didn't, you got fined $1,500.
Well, I got a Super Bowl story for you. Mr. Davis, when we won our Super Bowl, and this was the last Super Bowl, this ring here was the last Super Bowl that the Raiders won.
Yeah, mine's not as big as that one.
Well, here's a Super Bowl story about this ring. Back when we won the Super Bowl, the NFL gives each team a certain allotment money to purchase their ring. And up until that, yep, the NFL, this is the story I had heard. They gave every team an amount.
Oh, yes.
They gave every team up until
Al Davis probably doubled or tripled it.
That's what he did.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And all the owners got upset.
Oh, yeah.
Because he added like $7,000 to this. This has platinum and onyx and diamonds.
That's Raiders, bro.
And he added like tripled the amount, and all the owners got upset because they said, "We're not going to do it. You're setting a precedent." And thanks to Mr. Davis, after this, the rings, I don't know, they got bigger and bigger. But
other owners, the Patriots did put, I think they put an additional $1,000 into our championship ring. But each owner has their own way they like to roll this out. It's
I heard it didn't sit too well with some of the owners. They didn't like.
There's a lot of stuff he did. He didn't care. He's the Raiders. And then, this was crazy. And then, when we were playing, and I told you the story, like with the Patriots, we'd have, 39 mental errors in the whole season. And in one game with the Raiders, we had 47 mental errors. I never seen anything like it in my life. I just didn't understand it. And then after the game, we happened to win the game. And I asked Matt Millen about that. I said, "Matt, is this?" They go, "We won. It's the only thing that matters." I said, "Aren't you going to be coaching up some of the corrections?" He said, "For what? We won the game." We won the game.
Matt Millen, I think of all the guys on our team, he was the one guy that could bench press over 500 pounds. and his nickname, I don't know if you remember, his nickname was Bub. Bub.
Bro, I don't. Matt Millen. Okay, we were in El Segundo at the time. Matt Millen, you go over to his house, and his house was right across the street. He rented. You go over there, and all he wore were the practice grays. It's like he didn't have any. He didn't buy any clothes. I said, bro, aren't you gonna put on something? And inside the place that he rented, he made all the furniture. He's like, I'm not gonna spend any money on it. I'm gonna make this stuff. And God bless him to this very day. You know, he's country strong, and he has a way about doing it. He's going to be out there on his tractor, and he's a highly intelligent, but very powerful and a simple man. And then there was a game I was at with my son. He goes, "Hey, Dad, Matt's up there in the booth." And I said, "Oh, that's cool." And he goes, "I'm going to go say hi to him." I said, "Yeah, tell him I said hi." And the next thing I know, they go, "Dad, he wants you to come up there." And I said, "Okay." And he puts me in the booth, and he goes, "Come on, let's do this game." I go, "Bro, I'm not doing this game. Bro, look at that play." All of a sudden, we're both doing the game. The producer had no idea that was happening, and we were doing the game together. It was very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt's amazing. He was at our alumni reunion last year, and he looked great. And as you know, he and Rod Carew, who was a great baseball player, Rod Carew and Matt Millen have something in common. They have a heart from someone else.
I didn't know that I knew he had heart issues. I didn't
heart
know
transplant.
I didn't know he had a transplant.
He's got it. Matt's got a new heart, I believe, and so does Rod Carew. Actually, Rod Carew, who was a great baseball player.
I know who Rod Carew is.
Yeah, Rod Carew's
baseball
heart
was my first love.
Okay.
Don't be asking, talk to me like I don't know who Rod is.
Well, Rod's heart came from a former Stanford football player that suddenly passed away. He was only 30 years old, and his heart was given to Rod Carew.
When?
Probably 7-8 years ago. I'm just guessing. Maybe.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know how I missed that.
Yeah. So back to Super Bowl Sunday. We're getting close.
Saturday. It's Super Bowl Saturday.
Super Bowl Saturday. So right now the players where are the players right now?
The players right now would likely be at their brunch, and they will go and get ready for their walkthrough. Is it possible that they do the walkthrough at the hotel? No, because Saturday is the day. Typically, that's where the families all go on the field. And they sit there and they wear their jerseys, no pads, and they just out there walk around and they line up, and the practices are probably 12 minutes long. But all the family members can come down on the field, and it's the last time that they are together with their family and their children before everyone is sequestered. And it's a very intimate, like this is it. And so it's sort of like, when Apollo astronauts are walking up into the tower, and in these minutes they're walking in and they're locking the door.
Right.
And so, yeah.
And now this Super Bowl tomorrow, and then we're Super Bowl Saturday today, but Super Bowl tomorrow, you've got some players, and I have not spoken about him, but I have to say, I have to do a shout out to both him and.
We need to talk about important stuff, like the family drama.
No, this is important because he's a great player, Christian McCaffrey.
McCaffrey. Brother. No, that's an alien from another galactic.
And his father was a great player. His father,
tremendous.
His father has 2 Super Bowl rings, thanks to, I think, John Elway helped him win our former teammate with the Broncos. And Christian's looking for his first Super Bowl ring. And I got to believe, I don't know how you, but I think he's the most valuable player on the 49ers, Christian.
By far. By far.
Now at the same
and
time,
he is one of the most intense conditioner I've ever seen in training all the different training all the different body parts.
Well, you got Walter Payton, you got Jerry Rice, and now you got Christian McCaffrey, and Tom Brady too. Tom Brady.
Yeah.
What do you think when you look at those four players? You look at Walter Payton, Christian McCaffrey, Jerry Rice, and Tom Brady. What are if you had to pick out what each, when you talk about your physical conditioning, what makes each of those players special? Because all four of
them. Their intensity in preparation and study, and then that is their complete world. So the idea of going, oh, let's go hang out, let's go do this, oh, I'm going to buy this house, oh, I'm going to get these clothes. There is 1,000% total focus. When I was at Stanford, during my years there, I went out 3 times my entire career. I was sitting there. I was totally focused. McEnroe came by and go, you need to go out and do something. I said, no, I am icing down and studying these plays. Bro, you're going to be a first rounder. I said, I don't care. You don't even need to graduate. I said, I will graduate. And then Tim Mayotte said the same thing. He goes, I don't get it, bro. I don't get it. So tremendous study. And so they have tremendous intelligence. Brady, though, is a bit different because of those wonderful quarterback checks. He has some intelligence. So I would not be surprised if he had GPS up there on every ball player, and he used motion capture, so he knew exactly what the defense is going to do on every play, allegedly.
That's amazing. Well, that's actually that brings me to the technology in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence. And this is something that you know a lot about. Brian, tell our audience what's happening right now with the technology and artificial intelligence, and where do you see it going with American football?
Well, you could literally, if you know how to use it properly, you could take all the plays you ran during the season and put it in there, and they'll calibrate it on that day. What are the top plays to run against this team? Okay, so that will give you intelligence based on the trends of what the team has done. But if you come in there, and if I was using an AI prompt, I would sit there and go, of all the plays that we've run this year, build us a preparation tool that tells us what their plays are going to look like against us. And so now what I want you to do is completely go and break our own trend and keys and give us the plays that will be totally never run before out of these formations. So there's no intelligence on them. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yes, and I was just thinking as you're describing what's going to be happening in the future and what may happen tomorrow, would you say that the 49ers, because they're right there in the middle of the Silicon Valley, that they might have, Kyle Shanahan might have that AI edge over Andy Reid?
I would say I would absolutely say that's something to consider. 1,000%. And there's some people will sit there, go play with your AI toys. We're going to come and just pound you and beat you. So there's a couple mentalities on that, but I do know there's so much information available that it allows you to have some predictability. And it would not surprise me of how many ball players would have chips on their body and shoulder pads so that they know the kind of nutrients they're going to need when they go to the sideline. And it brings data to the sideline, and they're one that prepares the drink that represents the empowering up of their nutrients, because you can burn uh, gosh, what was it? You can burn a gallon of water at night just thinking. So if you can deplete your body like that, then you must need to not just take in fluids, you got to take in a certain gradation of alkaline for your body to perform at its highest level, alkaline and magnesium. Glory, huh? How about
Wow.
that?
By
But
the way, I would be remiss to say that your family, one of your family, lovely family members, your beautiful sister, Karen, is her birthday today or tomorrow?
it's on the 8th. So we just missed her birthday.
We just missed her birthday.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I
So
want to say happy
happy birthday.
birthday, Karen, and a big shout out to Vaughn Williams, who was our teammate
Yeah.
and is an NFL alumni. So happy
Yeah.
birthday, Karen.
Yeah.
Belated birthday.
Yep. So Vaughn is a family member from way back. And then, my brother Jonathan played at Stanford too. And his roommate, one of his roommates was Stephen Sullins, one of the leads at Blackstone, bro. So,
Well, and your brother is the president of Rutgers University.
bro, I mean, I'm trying to have a little bit of flash, NFL All Pro. He comes in, Stanford, Yale, head of African American Studies, dean of Yale, goes provost of Northwestern, president of Rutgers. Bro, he just blanked me, bro. He just erased me.
Hey, this is Super Bowl Saturday, but I would be remiss because your background.
Remiss. Stop saying remiss. What word is? No one knows what remiss is.
Well, I would be
real.
Your history, your family history is so interesting, Brian. And we're going to be using, just to let everyone know, Brian has said we're going to be using artificial intelligence to break this talk up, this Super Bowl Saturday talk up.
We're gonna use and edit it. It'll be something really
an
wonderful.
AI editor. But Brian, could you share with our audience, because your family is amazing? Could you talk about was it your great grandfather, or just a little bit?
Well, so my grandfather on one side, my mother's father, was one of the scholar leaders, and he went to Yale. That was helping build out the literally the spreadsheet performance street for the civil rights movement. And so one of the things that was necessary was going to be the educational opportunities, but they would be flex so that they can go and accommodate, minorities and of all races, and also women who had families at home and they had to take care. So they needed a flex schedule. And so the model that was built up was the United Negro College Fund. And as a result of that, it was very compelling. And he was put together a group of scholars, and they were part of President Kennedy's, it was called the Black Kitchen Cabinet. And so that was bringing about tremendous change. And on his brother-in-law was one of the most brilliant, articulate pastors at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. And when he was young, of course, that was during the time of slavery, he was taught to memorize the Bible because if you were seen reading, you would be killed. And so his name was Vernon Johns. So Kareem helped fund a movie called The Vernon Johns Story. But he was at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, and in his communicating with his people out there, he would sit there and talk about, economic independence, and, be able to grow your own food, to be able to be thoughtful and visionary. And and there was a young pastor coming in that he was training, and his name was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So it was something else when, and I didn't know all this was going on. I was a young puppy. And then at dinner times, you had to wear a collared shirt at the table, and they would have all these people over at Grandpa's house. And I think it was, oh heavens, I was 3 years old at the time. And you have to wear, and I was sitting there, and there was this man that walks in, and he was really short, and he talked really slow and deep like this. And little did I know that was Dr. King. So
Wow.
it was something else. And when I asked Grandpa about it, you know, I got slapped across the room. You know, you just don't. You know, that was like I was just asking. You know, so it
Now,
was back in those days where Grandma would even take you behind the woodshed, and it would knock you out. So
now,
yeah, it was a very different time. I mean, I grew up and saw some things that people see in history, but
now,
when we were down in Alabama and me and my brothers and sister scored the highest points to get in this elite academy that happened to be all white, um, it hit the newspaper that night. The next morning, we had to leave town. So we had to move. It was too dangerous.
well, you know, it's interesting about danger. I was just listening last night. They were talking about Oakland, California. Um, you know, I moved and I know this is Super Bowl Saturday, and I'm going to get back on track. But you know, there's some places in California that are not as safe as they were back when I moved to California in 1967.
Well,
Um,
could you imagine with the ball players who sit there and now they have to prepare for the off season? And California was a favorite place for many athletes because of the weather and because they had a whole different level of cultural diversity, I believe. But it's changed so much. And so we've seen a lot of the pro athletes move to Florida, but it's
or
certainly a
or
different
ten,
world.
or Tennessee, Nashville,
Okay,
Tennessee.
right. No, that's true. No, that's true. But you know, when I was a rookie, I did not want to have my children live um, like in a prison where you have to put bars on your windows and doors and have all these gates around. I want my children to be able to play. So I bought a 200-acre place in the country, and it still was secure. We had a driveway about a mile long, and as country folks know, you put three dogs on the outside and two on the inside. And we had these floodlights that I got them from airports. And so if anyone came up the driveway, we hit the lights and the driver couldn't see and send the dogs out. But um, yeah, but it was important to be able to have my kids have the opportunity to grow up and have friends and neighbors come over and play outside as they want, and uh, and have sleepovers, just like have a childhood. You
And
know,
how many children? How many children do you have? And then tell our audience not only how many children do you have, how many grandchildren do you have?
well, the eight children, and you know, you haven't lived till you go to the grocery store with $1,000 cash and come out with 17 cents. You know, and then you have the boys eating 6 meals a day. And then another thing I wasn't quite ready for is I wasn't quite ready for 20 people spending the night on weekends. So that was something else. And of course, that was many years ago. And now, you know, we have 12 you know, they're all adults now. We have 12 grandchildren. So that's really wonderful.
And of your 12 grandchildren, how many are, because there's two things right now, I think American football, and I got to take my hat off to Troy Vincent, because Troy Vincent said a few years ago, he said, the future of football is going to be flag football. And as you know, and this is Super Bowl Saturday, I know that, but is it this summer or is it the next 4 years? Flag football is going to be in the Olympics.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised because you go to the Pro Bowl and that's what they brought out as one of the leads, right? And then also in the off season when ball players have their own little football camps, you know, they've encouraged to move to flag football because it's safer. And also there's a balance there because it allows boys and girls both to line up on those fields, just athletes to play. So it's not gender specific, you know. So that is something that's semi very cool.
Now,
And
Brian, when I was a little kid, when I moved to Orinda, California in 1967, and I learned how to swim at the Berkeley YMCA. Now, can you imagine? Think about going down Shattuck Avenue in Berkeley, and I'll never forget. They said, "Hey, Mike," and I was 7 years old. They said, "You can play this game. It's flag football." And I remember, and my quarterback was Harley Miller, who ended up being a star at University of Pacific, and he was 2 grades ahead of me. I was in first grade, and he was in third or fourth grade, and he threw the most beautiful spiral. And I put these flags on, and I'd run, and I'd catch the ball. And I had so much fun playing flag football. And I played flag football 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, almost 5 or 6 years of flag football. And I loved it.
And guess what else they're doing on Super Bowl Saturday? They're checking all the balls in and to see and their proper inflating. Every football has to be checked on both sides. And many of the quarterbacks sit there and go, oh, no, because they have a special football that has both teams on it, and it has the Super Bowl logo. And so it takes a minute for the quarterbacks to get used to throwing that, and the receivers too. So they have to determine which set of gloves are the best to wear throwing that football.
Well, Brock Purdy's going to be happy because there's not going to be any rain tomorrow. No rain in Allegiant Stadium.
It's got a cover on it. How could you have rain there?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, and yet, there's not going to be any rain. And how many Super Bowls? That's a good question. How many Super Bowls are there that are open air versus closed? If you looked at there's 58. This is the 58th Super Bowl. How many were played in open air stadiums versus closed stadiums?
I would guess that it's about a 50%. It's 50%. But could you imagine on a Saturday like this, now the ball players are like, you don't contact your family. You don't contact your family. You don't contact your family. And all the stuff that goes on with the questions about whatever, the tickets. Oh, how about this one? You mean you forgot your ID? You cannot get in the game without your ID.
Right.
Okay. You can't give your ticket away to someone else. It has to be registered. Don't do that. The
security for this Super Bowl tomorrow,
the highest
of all time.
The highest.
Yeah.
Now, are you ready for this? And the ball players know their family, and they'll sit there and tell their brother or sister, please do not try to bring any alcohol in the game or bring any sound devices or whistles or, don't do it. And as you know, family, there's some brothers and sisters who will sit there and go, God, could you imagine if I get thrown out of this thing? Be the most incredible game of all time, because families are families, so we'll see. My brother and sister, I said, I said, I could sell your ticket for $2,000. Do you want me to do that and give you the $2,000? And my brother said, heck yeah. And my sister said, heck yeah. And then on game day, Jonathan was like, hey, wait a minute. I bet you can buy a ticket for $100 outside the game after the first quarter. And he went over there and bought a ticket for $50 and watched the game and put the money in his pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what, though? Today with the technology, there's no more paper tickets.
Yeah. Well, it's necessary, though. It's necessary because, on Super Bowls, it's and you got to look at this stuff. It is like the Olympics and like the World Cup, the number one target in the world on that day, right?
Well, they did a
So,
movie. I think there was a movie done about that. This is where, just Hollywood, they come up with these movies and
well, I mean, the security is. Let's put it this way: the stadium security and the airspace security has been. They have a whole strategy that's been built out for years for this game, and also they have a circumference from the stadium that they've all studied and analyzed and had people on point for the last 6 months, right? You have to, just so people can be safe, have a wonderful experience, have it be the day of their life. And then, but what other thing they're doing out there is, bro, in Vegas, they're having a watch party outside for the people, and they're shutting down a street. So there's like 100,000 people outside, and they have, the food and the drinks just like inside,
right.
So they can have the total experience, right? Bro, $39 for a slice of pizza.
Yeah.
$29 for one Gatorade.
I don't understand.
$49 for a beer.
Yeah.
Right? But, the time of their life. And you'll see people there bringing out peanut butter jelly sandwiches from their bag and all their snacks, and having the time of their life. And so I think that is super cool.
Well, I'm having the time of my life with you, Brian, because this is I think we're breaking a champions. And thanks to you, because we're now calling this Champions on the Dot. Thanks to you, your inspiration.
Yeah, you bet.
And I think we're breaking we've been going live an hour and 26 minutes, which is, I believe, a Champions on the Dot record. If we go another 40 minutes, we might break Tucker Carlson's interview this week.
Bro, Super Bowl. Super Bowl. Okay, this is why you got put in the trash can, bro. This is why. I promise you.
I'm just saying, if you want to go
before game, tell me your favorite meal.
Well, my favorite meal, I love breakfast. Okay. I love breakfast, and I now know, thanks to my being involved.
What was your breakfast that your favorite in the
you'd have steak.
Pre-game.
Steak.
You would eat steak?
Yeah, we'd have steak. You better.
No, what would you eat?
I would have some steak. Yeah.
No.
Oh yeah, I would have some steak. Now I do have to. Thanks to our alma mater, I used to, I would never forget. I was just about ready my freshman year to take a cup of coffee, and this is 1979. And Scotty, who was our trainer at Stanford, came over and said, "Don't drink that coffee." And I said, "Why not?" And he said, "Well, here's your average energy level, and what caffeine does is it gets you, so when you drink that cup of coffee, your energy level goes up here, but then 3 hours later, it starts coming down, and when you get into the game, your average, it goes below. You will dip below." And he said that caffeine is not good. That's what I was told. So
the linemen could drink all the caffeine they wanted. We ain't touching the ball. And so you guys got the preferential treatment there.
I know. Well, then why, Scotty? That's what. So that from that point on, I didn't drink coffee. So
Scotty, all he did was just put more tape on me.
Steak and eggs. That's what steak and eggs. And I love hash browns. I love the hash browns, steak and eggs, and hash browns.
Wow. I had to do all my heavy eating on Thursday and Friday. Okay, so for a Saturday game, or let's say a Sunday game, on game day, I rarely ate more than a scrambled egg and a piece of toast. But I've had full energized from what I ate before, but I drank tremendous amount of fluids because I was ready. When I'm ready to fight, my appetite is gone.
Now, Brian, this picture behind me, number 67, that's you running on the field. And you were, correct me if I'm wrong, you're about 280 pounds in that picture, right? 280?
With the six pack. Yeah, buddy.
Okay. Now, when you became a New England Patriot, you increased your weight to what? How much did you weigh when you were a Patriot?
Well, I'd go from 85. And if you're going to the winter at the end of the season where it's a lot of cold, I mean, you want to blow up to about 310, and sometimes 320. So you pack food, which is like coal. But when you go down to Florida, let's say you're going to play Tampa, you're going to have to sit there and cut to 275. So I can lose.
Would your weight would fluctuate that much?
Per team I'm going to play, yeah. I'd sit there and go, like, when I come down and play in Tampa, I bring 2 sets of clothes because I go in the game at, 295 and walk out of the game at, 270.
Wow.
Yeah, you cut all that weight. And then when you go to Denver, because of the air, you train all week long with the oxygen, right? So you can oxygen rich your body because having to deal with, but you better cut weight because
Now these players, our Super Bowl team, we only had one guy on our team who was barely 300 pounds, and you remember him, and he's transitioned, Bruce Davis.
Oh, yeah.
He was the only guy who was just barely 300 pounds. And this Super Bowl, these two teams, the 49ers and the Chiefs, how many 300-pounders are on each team?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to get to that thing. But when I saw Bruce blow up to 365, bro, I was like, whoa. He couldn't even put his head on the ground. And I was like, oh, heavens, I've never seen that before. You're a tremendous, tremendous athlete. But on this team, because I would say that there's got to be, let's see, that will be on the field, it's got to be at least 8 of them, yeah.
So would you say about 8 players on each team are above 300?
No, you get the 5 of the 5 offensive linemen. They got to be over 300. You can't be smaller than that.
Well,
and on the defense, I'm guessing that 2 or 3 of the defensive players are going to be, at 300. Maybe at the least on defense there'll be 2. But now, just because it says that on the program, don't you dare believe that program. Don't you dare believe that program.
So, I was going to ask you that question because I remember when I was playing, I said I'm 6 foot, and I played with the Raiders. I was 202 pounds.
Okay.
Which I was 202 pounds, but I probably just a little, like a quarter of an inch below 6, but I said I was 6.
Yeah.
Now you're 6'7", right?
6'7", yes, buddy.
Now,
yeah.
Are you 6'7"? That was 40 years ago. Are you 6'7" today?
I'm probably 6'6" and a half. There's a little compression going on, but if I stand up straight, everyone's got compressed vertebrae.
You know, Jim Plunkett, the great Jim Plunkett, who I don't have this ring without Jim Plunkett. And I don't, I can now look at Jim eye to eye now. And he was a tall man. Wasn't he 6'2", 6'3"?
I thought I was the king with 26 operations. He's 57.
Hey, how about this? We call him Pops, another nickname, Jim Otto. I asked Jim, I said, Jim, how many operations have you had? He told me 88 operations.
No way. Wow.
Yep.
I believe it.
Yep.
I believe it.
But the technology today for these players today, don't you think that the technology to, if you tear your anterior cruciate, when I tore my anterior cruciate, that was pretty much the kiss of death for a running back. Today, who was the great running back for the Minnesota Vikings? He tore his cruciate, and then the next year he came back and broke the all-time NFL record, the great running back for the Minnesota Vikings.
Thomason?
No, that was San Diego.
I don't know, because
maybe one of our, you know what? Maybe one of our listeners, because there's people listening right now. You can type in, by the way, so live viewers can comment. So if anyone has any comments, they show up here. So if you have a question for Brian or myself, please type it in.
Yeah, I played with a torn ACL, and that was something else. It was very difficult, very painful, and required tremendous training. You know who trained me? When I was out there with the Raiders, I would go down to
Arnold Schwarzenegger,
and Colombo.
Oh,
yeah,
yes,
yeah. He's a big chiropractor. He does all chiropractic on all the folks training.
Were you at Venice Beach down there at
Gold's? Yeah.
Gold?
Yeah, I got a poster up there on the wall. Yeah, but and I was training. He goes, "You do that wrong." I said, "Well, I had my." He says, "I could see your shoulder," and he says, "This is what you must do first." And you get over to the pulleys, and you stand there and grab a pulley that is across your body. So down there, you spread your feet, and you take your right hand and bring it down to your left toe with the pulley, and then you pull it up in the air. And what that does is train the necessary small connector muscles, and you strengthen them first, and that would allow the rest of the muscles to be stabilized. And boy, did that make a difference. It was the fastest way to get the 500-pound bench press back. And he goes, "See, I told you." So we're friends from for many years. And
by the way,
he married one of my friends.
I got the list here. Donovan Smith, he's a Chief. He's playing tomorrow in the Super Bowl. 6'6", 338.
He ain't gonna be 338 tomorrow, bro.
And then the next one is Jawan Taylor, who's a tackle. He's 6'5", 330.
Yeah.
And then there's Neil Farrell, 6'4", 325. Trey Smith, 6'6", 321.
They didn't have weigh-in this week, bro. I promise you.
No, but I'm just saying Lucas Nying, 6'6", 315. Chris Jones, 6'6", 310.
Yeah.
Nick Allegretti, 6'4", 310. Wanya Morris, 6'6", 307. Joe Thuney, 6'5", 304. Creed Humphrey, 6'4", 302.
Yeah.
And Mike Caliendo, 6'4", 301. And you're right, that's about 8 or 9 players. You're right on the dot.
Yeah. So, but they're going to be playing it. Let's put it this way. There are players that will step on that field that will be absolutely at their peak. And there's some players that know I'm going to give it my very best, but I'm going to enjoy myself because this is where my career ends. So we'll see.
That you bring up a great point, Brian. This is just me. I'm just hoping. I would love to see Christian McCaffrey, my fellow Stanford running back, get his Super Bowl ring tomorrow. And because John Lynch has already got one because he was a player for Tampa Bay when they won the Super Bowl. But I would love to see Christian McCaffrey get his ring and then retire.
Again, could he do that? Sure, I've seen it, but you just don't know. I mean, some part of just his tremendous training, bro. I will tell you, it's they're out there, but I have not seen. They're not. Let's see, other 1,200 players in the league. I don't think there's 100 players that train like he does. That group is real small, maybe 100, but and he has so much of that joint strength and power. He'll use stuff, and he runs so fresh. So there might be a few stem cells in there too.
Well, Brian, the only reason I say I'd love to see him, retire with the Super Bowl ring. John Elway did it. Um, the great goalie for the Montreal Canadiens when we were young, Ken Dryden, he was the MVP in the Stanley Cup and he quit. I remember when our team won the Super Bowl and I said to Jim Plunkett, I said, Jim, you can retire. And he looked at me and said, Soupy, no, I love the game too much.
I don't, it's very hard for me to see that. I mean, but again, there's some ball players that are already staged for what they're going to do afterwards. I mean, did I know I'd go into, building out companies? Did I know I'd be an expert at merger acquisition? Did I know I'd be out there and, I was Steve Jobs. I worked with Apple for 15 years. Did I know? I didn't know. So I think for the ball players, I would say this, they're getting paid so much money, but I think as a competitor of excellence, it's what they're going to do next and build that out because, they're young kids, they're done at 30. And so use what they've done to be the platform for them to launch to their life commission.
Hey, you gotta love technology, Brian, because remember I just mentioned a few minutes ago, I said there's people from all over the country listening. And one of my good friends, Scott Bowling, he's listening from Austin, Texas. And I asked the audience, they said, who was that great running back that tore his anterior cruciate? And he came back the next year and broke the all-time rushing record. And thank you, Scott Bowling from Austin, Texas, Adrian Peterson.
Oh, yes, that's what I was thinking of. Yes. Yep. That's tremendous. What a tremendous athlete. Tremendous. But let me get you back to ground zero here, bro. His offensive line had a lot to do with that, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Boy, brought it down. Offensive line again. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know what?
And the play selection and the offensive coordinator, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, as we said earlier, an hour ago, John Madden, who's one of the great coaches of all time and just one of the great, American football heroes of all time. I'll never forget, as I said, you build your team first with your offensive line.
Yeah. Because those guys have to, one, get along. They're going to be all different. I mean, a left tackle has to have certain capabilities. Okay. They're going to face the most difficult job. They could have to block 4 different people on one play. But your guards, they don't have the same, they're going to have to run in different ways, right? So, and you want them, strong as a bull. Left guard is different from the right guard. So every position is wired completely different. And so, but, each needs to be the best that they are in class and best in category, right? So that's very cool. Very cool. So,
well, I since it's Super Bowl Saturday and I gave a shout out to all the big Chiefs, I have to do the same for the 49ers. And here we go, real quick. Ben Barch, offensive line, 6'6", 315. Then Jalen Moore, offensive line, 6'4", 311.
Yep.
Sebastian Joseph Day, 6'4", 310.
Yep.
Javon Hargrave, defensive lineman, 6'2", 305.
Yep.
Colin Mikovits, 6'6", 301. And Spencer Burford, 6'4", 300. And what this is showing me is that the 49ers look like they're a little leaner than the Chiefs.
Remember, a lot has to do with their playing field and the conditions that they play under, right? So the 49ers will have less of a toll on their body from the environment than Kansas City, right? 49ers, I would guess, play on less AstroTurf than the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
And so the 49ers, because of that, have a different level of conditioning. I never forget when I went to the 49ers, when I was a 49er for 2 weeks. that they had something I'd never seen before, and it was because of the owner's background in horses and horse racing. They had a treadmill in a pool of water. So if you were recovering from a knee, you could sit there and do treadmill in water, and the buoyancy would take the stress off your weight and joints, and you can get in condition faster, and you could do more cardio. That was incredible. Absolutely. And then you would walk onto the practice field, and it would have this, it was such a cushion before you actually hit the field, and it gave you like a level of bounce. And that was for also learned in equestrian. So it would allow the horse's legs to be rested and take a lot of stress off them when they move. And so when they had that 49ers, I was like, no way, this is really cool.
Hey,
Really.
we got another friend, Mike Alston from Sacramento. Mike is a orthopedic a technology.
I lived at Mather Air Force Base in Sacramento in 1961.
Well, Mike
Yeah,
Alston's
buddy.
I got an orthopedic technology engineer, Mike
Wow.
Alston. He's pulling for the Niners. And Mike, this is my good friend and Hall of Famer Brian Holloway, Super Bowl. Got to help.
I love the 49ers.
Yeah, yeah.
I do. Like I said, I was there for 2 weeks. Was almost going to be blocking for Joe, and they found out that my contract. I was the first testing a guaranteed contract, an injury guarantee.
Well, you were recruited to Stanford by one of the greatest coaches in history, and he won 4 Super Bowls. And the West Coast offense could probably be credited to what he did, and that's
By
Bill
far.
Walsh.
By
Bill
far.
Walsh. And what could you
single
give it?
most-
Share with our audience some good Bill Walsh Super Bowl Saturday stories.
Well, I would say this: when I was being recruited, I was there at the Rose Bowl, and Bo Schembechler was recruiting me, Michigan, and then USC. I was their number 1 recruit, and so I was sitting in the 50-yard line in the most incredible seats, the most expensive seats. And there were a couple of folks that were very smart to buy the seats very close to that as well. And on my right was Seifert, on my left was Walsh. And he recruited me away from them right there during the Rose Bowl. It was fantastic. And then when he got to Stanford, what he said, listen, we're going to introduce you to this. And we plan to throw the ball 50 times a game. And I was like, this is interesting. And he said this, in the offense I built, he made some incredible questions to the engineers. He said, is it possible to get down the field without blocking anybody? And they gave him some algorithms and discovered that you don't have to sit there and necessarily block your guy. Because imagine if you could get rid of your guy in 2 seconds. The play's 7 seconds long. That means you could be 5 seconds downfield to disrupt the defense, which was absolutely the style of my play. But it was just fun to watch because there were so many misdirections and there was so much easier ways to get ball down the field. And he knew, which was shocking, the most explosive play and dangerous play in football was a 5-yard pass. Pass halfback 2, pass fullback 2.
To one of the greatest running backs in college football history, Darren Nelson.
By far. And you could do that simple play, and you cannot stop that play. And you give him that ball right out there in the flat, or you forget it. You give you space out there, you're going to get the ball down the field very quick.
Yeah. Our audience doesn't know. A lot of people out there don't know that the first running back, and I know this is Super Bowl Saturday, but I have to give a shout out to Darren, our brother Darren Nelson. The first running back in college football history to rush for 1,000 yards and
Yes.
catch 50 passes was Darren Nelson. He did it
Yeah.
his freshman year,
Yeah.
and then he did it again his sophomore year.
Yeah.
And you were there to help him do it.
Yeah, by far the greatest running back I've ever seen. I would put him up there with Sanders had he not, blown his knee in the long jump.
Well, what was amazing about Darren Nelson,
He
he
came back.
tore his tendon
Yeah.
in the long jump and still came back from it, changed his game, and
First
was like
round
you,
draft
Darren,
pick, 10 years in the
round
NFL.
pick. Yeah. I mean, that tells you if he doesn't, if is a big word, if you don't do this or that, but if he doesn't tear his tendon, you're going to put Darren Nelson and Barry Sanders would be right at the same talking points.
I would say, yeah.
Well, Bill Walsh, Mike Alston says Bill Walsh, one of the greatest of all times. Now, here's a little comment, and I think I'd like to get your thoughts on this. This is Mike Alston again. I just hope Shanahan's stubbornness doesn't get the best of him tomorrow. What does that mean?
Well, I could tell you what it means is that, he has a way in which he sees, and that is exactly what Kansas City is counting on, because that means that they're going to run a sequence of plays that are, this is what we do. And that can be very dangerous going into the Super Bowl because you need to surprise them.
But if one of those Silicon Valley AI geniuses says, maybe in the last week or two, gets with Coach Shanahan and say, Coach, we've got an algorithm.
Not going to happen.
Okay.
It'd be the players on the field that sit there and go, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. I played for his dad. His dad is the same way. Dad was the same way.
Well, his dad's got 2 Super Bowl rings, but at the same time, Brian, that was how many 20 plus years ago? Would you say the game's changed?
Maybe 80 years ago.
No. How's the game, Brian, how's the game changed during your lifetime? What's the biggest changes you've seen? We talked about technology, but other things.
Well, I think it's just hilarious. I said to Michael Orr one time, and we've been dear friends for many years, is that, bro, because I was kind of like, being a buddy to him, but also being a bit of an elder godfather and saying, yeah, this is how you do, you prepare this way. This is how you handle that situation. And this is what some of the thing you're doing that amazing. And Michael, why are you just blocking 2 people on every play? You can block 3, right? He says, yeah, I know. I said, why don't you? He says, because I don't want people making fun of me. I said, why would they make fun of me? Because I would show out. I said, bro, just block 3 people on every play. I talked to Anthony Munoz and he said, yeah, we haven't seen that before because he was so quick. But I will tell you that you're going to see an amazing game. You're going to see an amazing game.
Now, how about this insight? Mike Alston, if in my opinion, if Coach Shanahan wins the toss, the 49ers win the toss and elect to defer, we're going to have trouble.
Well, the defer, actually, the numbers tell you the defer is actually the thing statistically that has that puts more momentum in your favor. And I don't understand why either. But I do know categorically the numbers show that gives you some leverage that I've never seen before. I don't get it.
Detroit obviously was up on the 49ers last 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And what did and the coach there elected not to kick the field goals. What are your thoughts about those calls for Detroit?
Like I said, you get in moments and sometimes they're like, we're going to do stuff we've never done before. And so, and some of them would be risky and some would be going way outside of what would be sound, practical, calculated. So I do know I'm one of the guys that is big into shock and awe. And so, I love the idea of running McCaffrey 40 plays and striking deep fast. Okay, so we'll see.
Yeah. Well, that's Woody Hayes, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. If you could run that football, huh?
Yeah, well, again, he's so dangerous
He is.
because there are very few players on the field in his position that are running this strong at this time of year. It's just hard to do.
Well, I'm going to say here's the thing that I'm going to say the intangible. This is just my opinion. Tomorrow, those Chiefs on defense, and I've been told, and I don't know if you agree, but they say that this Chiefs defense is the best defense that Patrick Mahomes has had in his career.
I would say, yeah, I would say.
And if that is true,
yeah,
those defensive players, probably half of those players on that defense, this is their one shot to get the ring. Their one shot. And I think the emotions of the game, they're in the first 2 or 3 series.
The emotion of who are you talking about? Like, I mean, you understand that Kansas City Chief, this is just like, yeah, we're here again, right?
Well, that's a question. How many of the defensive players starting tomorrow, I'd like to, were on the team last year when they won the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's not just the players, bro. It is if your team has Super Bowl experience and the organization has a recipe, it certainly gives an advantage going into this game because you have a recipe on how you do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the week before, and now this. So that's going to be in Kansas City's favor, that part.
Well,
but
I guess
the playing in Vegas is going to be an advantage to 49ers. I mean, there's a lot of wonderful stuff, because 49ers are on the same, basically almost the same time frame. You're playing in stadium in the fields that you're used to. You can wear your favorite cleats. The weather is stuff that you're accustomed to. It's not dramatic. It's a dramatic shift from Kansas City, right? So there's many wonderful, exciting things that are going to make this so interesting. So, and then out there with the air, you're breathing different air because you're out there in the desert. The minerals have a different energy and frequency. You know that. That impacts how you play. It impacts the kind of energy you're able to generate and power, right? And people don't understand that's part of this game. So
good point. Yeah, the environment in Allegiant Stadium is different than the environment in Kansas City. Right?
You could take one team's hotel and just give them all feather pillows, and it will impact the game because the players that are allergic to feathers.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of things that everyone has to, be sure, because you just knock off, 5% here, 2% there, 0.5% there, and now you got a big advantage. So
the nice thing about Allegiant Stadium is they have this field. I think Arizona does too, where the
slide out. Yeah.
They slide the grass in.
Yeah. So it's good. It's just going to be this. It's just going to be incredible. The fan experience is going to be by far, quantumly the greatest fan experience of Super Bowl history.
Now, who is the halftime? Do we know who's the halftime entertainment tomorrow? Is it Usher or something? Is it?
Bro, I've never thought once about who shows up at halftime. Okay. All I know is this: halftime is a half an hour. That is like the length of the first half or second half. That's an enormous chunk of time. So that was a big adjustment, a huge adjustment.
I got one final question, and you're good. What we do on the dot, champions on the dot, we always let you have the last word, and I'm just going to ask you just one question. here we are in 2024, and we've got some things. I'm not going to get into details, but we got some things happening in the world that are a little bit concerning. And, I remember when we were growing up as little kids, there was an athlete named Muhammad Ali. And that was during a time where
Very dear family friend.
Yeah.
And at big events that would come into Boston, New England.
Yeah.
And he always requested me to be at his side.
Wow.
Yeah. With Richard Lapchek and Kareem, and we had some big events. It was, and his wife knew and had a great deal of confidence in me. And I would come get him in his room, and he wasn't finished doing his autographs. And she'd look at me, and I just stand there at the door, and she said, "Thank you." And then when he was ready, she would let me know, and he goes, "He's ready now." And so this is later in his career where he's a bit diminished. And then I'd take him, get him to the elevator, and we walk in, the grand ballroom at the Ritz-Carlton in Boston. And my job was to say, "Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest," and you'd see him do this. You'd go like this. He would stand up, and he just put that $1 billion smile on to walk in. It was very cool.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to meet him toward the end of his life. I met him at the Waldorf Astoria, and there was a fundraiser that Paul McCartney was having.
Wow. Is this Waldorf? Which Waldorf? In New York?
New York City. Yep. New York.
Yeah.
And I met Muhammad Ali and Paul McCartney at the party at the Waldorf. And the reason I brought him up is he was someone that I greatly admired, during the 60s when you had Dr. King and you had Malcolm X and you had, President Kennedy and you had Robert F. Kennedy, and it was the Vietnam War. And I just always admired what Muhammad Ali did. And he didn't take a knee in the ring. He didn't do that. He got his friends who were great athletes in other sports, Lou Alcindor, who's now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jim Brown, the great defensive end for the Green Bay Packers. Bobby Mitchell was there, whose son was our teammate at Stanford, Robert Mitchell. Anyway, he had a bunch of great athletes, and they got together for a press conference and talked about the horrible situation in Vietnam. Well, here we are in a situation where there's some stuff going on, and I don't hear anyone. The only person I heard utter anything was Annie Lennox at the Grammys. Said two words. She said peace, and she said ceasefire. So what are your thoughts about athletes, entertainers?
Well, I think, look, number one, athletes have a tremendous influence around the world. And I would tell you this. In fact, I'm reaching out to Manny Pacquiao right now. I mean, they have such a tremendous impact. And it is, everyone is responsible to serve and lead. And when you have that mindset and you can spread it across the culture, in fact, the globe, a lot of stuff just dissipates. And so right now, we're in one of those times of urgency. But I would say that, if you come from a military background, you're always on mission critical watch. And so I grew up with that my entire life. So I was very accustomed to it. And when my dad would take off and run missions and sorties, and he was part of the elite Strategic Air Command, I never knew where he was going, never knew when he was coming back. And so we're at a time, and this is not unfamiliar to military families. And it is not unfamiliar to our country. So I think we sit and watch the most incredible game of all time. I think we're thoughtful and be mindful about the conditions not in the world, but in our neighborhood, in our community, in our family. And so each of us has to be the leader and be the life force in that space. And by doing so, we make the world a bit of a kinder place, but it starts with us. That's how I was raised. So yeah, absolutely. You serve and lead, and you fulfill the gift that you were trusted with. And each of us were trusted with a gift, and that gift is not for us. It's for them, and it's for him. Absolutely.